Hello, welcome to this week's live. Another excellent one in the bag. That's the right word. In the bag for you guys this week, and one I'm super excited about because it's something that I don't know a huge amount about, but I do know that it's very beneficial to our training, especially for some of the events that we have coming up this year. So it's going to be a real kind of deep dive insight into altitude training, and we're going to be joined by the fantastic guys at the Altitude Centre who are going to be kind of telling us everything that we need to know, telling us perhaps what races it might be useful for if you guys are signed up to some of our races this year, which ones are kind of you get the most benefit from altitude training from, and also just looking a little bit more at like the benefits and why people should do more of it. So very excited to hear from the guys. Just seen that they've joined now. Go. Crossed Instagram will work with me. We've been on a pretty good roll so far, so fingers crossed it's gonna stick with it today. But yeah, if you guys have, we've had some questions sent in. If you guys have any, hello.
Hey, how you going? You good?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, very well. Just getting started. One sec. Oh, there we go. We're in. I think. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. All good. Very background. I like it.
Yes. Yeah, always got to be amongst the mountains for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Get people inspired, get people ready. Well, I'm going to back straight on because I know that we're sort of 25 minutes today. So very excited to catch up and to also hear more about altitude training at the Altitude Centre and also altitude training itself, because I, for one, don't know a huge amount about it. And I know that it's really a great way of training for a lot of our races. So super excited to hear more about it. So first things first, tell us a bit about you and the Altitude Centre itself.
Yeah, sure. So my name's James. I'm the lead performance specialist at the Altitude Centre, and the Altitude Centre are kind of the UK's like leading provider of altitude training. So we provide simulated altitude training equipment for anyone who's looking to improve their performance, really, whether that's people looking to, like, professional runners, professional cyclists, Premier League football clubs, international rugby teams, whoever it is, kind of at the top end, but then anyone looking to improve their performance. So if you're looking for a marathon PB, taking on your first ultra marathon, for example, whatever it might be, then basically anyone looking to get the most from themselves in terms of their performance, then altitude training is for them, and we can provide that.
Amazing. And just for those who perhaps don't know a great deal about what it is you guys do, what is altitude training?
I guess from like a historical point of view, people would think of it as being this thing that like endurance runners do, where they go into the mountains and they train for like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So they'll go somewhere like Sierra Nevada or Kenya or Ethiopia or wherever it might be to go and train. But for the vast majority of people, that's not applicable. Like, it's not necessarily the best way of training. It's not possible for like 99% of us. So with simulated altitude training, basically provide that either in an altitude chamber or at home. So it's kind of technology to simulate altitude by reducing the amount of oxygen that someone's breathing, either while they're training, like during exercise, at rest, or while they're sleeping. So like sleeping in an altitude tent. And it's available then for anyone, basically taking that altitude training and making it available for anyone at home.
Amazing. Because yeah, like you say, although it would be great to take, the year and go and live it up in Kenya and train at altitude over those 6 weeks, it's obviously not accessible for the majority of people. So you guys essentially provide an accessible avenue to get the most out of people's training via the altitude. Very cool. And I know that we've had lots of people use it previously and visit you guys when training for races like Mexico, but we'll touch a bit on that later. So why do people do altitude training? Obviously, for the guys who get to go out to Kenya or whatever, it's a great trip in another part of the world. But why do it? What are
Yeah, it's I guess like traditionally people would first have started using it to prepare for performance at altitude. So it comes from like before the 1968 Mexico Olympics, where they realized they were going to be competing at like 2,000 meters of altitude. Performance is probably going to be impaired by maybe like 10% at that sort of altitude. So people started to prepare for that specifically. And that's still the case today. So for your guys going out to Mexico, for anyone who's trying to compete at that sort of moderate altitude or even higher altitudes than that, then preparing and almost taking a step back from that, and before they even start training, understanding like how that altitude is going to affect them, if you see what I mean. So actually, how susceptible is this individual to high altitude, and is it going to impact their performance? Are they going to get altitude sickness? So even before they start training, we can start to understand that and prepare them then for performance at altitude. But also then just for general performance at sea level, like you only need to look at the success of some of the elite athletes like the BAM and track club, people like that, who are spending so much time at altitude, and then they come down to the sea level to perform, and they smash it. Like they just perform really well off the back of that altitude training. Yeah. And so the same thing then applies when people are sleeping in altitude tents or doing their training at altitude to then perform at sea level, and looking for that. So I guess it's kind of from a performance point of view, but also more and more like for injured athletes. So if you're injured, if you can train at altitude or sleep in an altitude tent, you might be able to maintain a little bit more fitness while you're injured, if you see what I mean. So I think there's massive kind of scope for that. And annoyingly, that's how I've been using it myself in the last like 2-3 months. So, but I've seen the benefits of that. Like it works really well for that. So that's kind of a new one that we're starting to see a little bit of as well, which is quite cool.
Definitely. And I guess that would just be basically spending less time training but reaping more benefits, right?
That's exactly it. Like if you're a runner and you usually run at 5-minute kilometers outside, if you can get into an altitude chamber or use an altitude generator on a treadmill, and you can run at 6-minute kilometers for 20 minutes rather than half an hour, then you're putting less stress through your body, but still getting your heart rate up, still getting the cardiovascular conditioning, but yeah, not stressing the body so much. So yeah, more bang for your buck really on that front.
Amazing. And I feel I'm on the comeback from injury.
Yeah.
On the comeback from injury journey as well. So I feel your pain. And I'm sure we'll probably actually touch on this a little bit later as well, but let's kind of open up the conversation now. Is it only relevant or is it only necessary if you are looking to race at altitude? We obviously touched on the fact you do get greater cardiovascular benefits when we're talking about the injury stuff, but yeah, what else can we see from people who are not going to be actually racing at altitude but do want to use the altitude center?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess like to take a step back, if you train at altitude, then you're depriving your body of oxygen, and your body doesn't really like that, so it starts to compensate for that. And what that then means is that you become more efficient at getting oxygen into your body, transporting it around your body, and then using it in your muscles and in your brain, which is really important. And so that's obviously beneficial for people who are racing at altitude, but if you're racing at sea level, or even quite low altitude, then that's going to be beneficial for performance. If you can start to transport and extract more oxygen from your blood, that's only going to be a good thing, whether you're looking to go quickly over 5K, 10K, or whether you're looking for massive ultra endurance, or even on like multi-day ultras. We find that it improves your ability to recover. So that ability to go hard on day one and then go again on day two, having to recover quickly, which is so important for multi-day stuff. Like that's where you're looking at it really, and it all comes down to how efficient you are with oxygen, which is then applicable to altitude performance or to sea level.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important what you were saying about bang for your buck. I know that we all have a little bit more time at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to last. It's light at the end of the tunnel now, and I'm sure it's going to last forever. So any kind of sort of convenience, for use of a better word, people can grasp or utilize, I think is really important going forward. And to know that you can kind of get essentially the same out of your training with a bit less time and perhaps a bit less speed or stress in the body is actually really, really beneficial to a lot of runners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can look at it two ways. You can either do the training that you would usually do, but do it at altitude and get more from it, or you can just ease off a little bit and get the same benefit from it, but without the risk of injury, without overuse, without fatigue, that sort of thing. So like the training that we do here that we put on for people is usually kind of hip based. Yep. Whether that's on a bike, whether that's a treadmill, circuit training as well, like resistance training at altitude, it has all the same benefits as well. So like half an hour session, bam, then you're done for the day. So if you're time crunched, then getting your session in at altitude is a great way of getting more from it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, touched on a little bit of this. We've talked about the cardiovascular benefits. We've talked about less stress on the body. But outside of that, what are the other benefits that come with training at altitude in the center?
Yeah, I guess the time crunch one is huge. But from a performance point of view, I guess improving performance at altitude by being pre-acclimatized, and whether that is moderate altitude for a race like Mexico, or whether that's people actually climbing at high altitude, like if they're going to Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp or whatever, then it'll affect them less. The way that I would always describe it when I'm competing at sea level is that I don't feel out of breath in the same way. That's the only way I can describe it. Is you can be in the last 500 meters of a 5K or whatever it is, where your legs are burning and you feel like your lungs should be burning as well, but you're just still in control in some way. Like, you're not out of breath. Your legs are screaming at you, don't get me wrong, but you're just not short of breath. That's the only way that I can describe it. And I think that's pretty cool, to be honest with you. I quite like that feeling.
Yeah, definitely felt that lungs burning, legs burning feeling on multiple occasions. So if I take one of them out of the equation, I think it's a clear win, to be honest. That's and great to hear that those benefits are also, I think it's quite nice, are transferable to the everyday runner as well as the elite athlete. A lot of people see altitude training as something that you only need to do if you're an elite, or if you're competing at a certain level, or if you're running a certain distance, but actually that's not the case. These benefits kind of spread far and wide across all levels of runners.
No, nailed it there. And it's it's the people who are looking for quick workouts and who are not the elites who have the most to gain from it. We've seen people improve their threshold by 10% or whatever in about 6 weeks when we've done case studies here at the center. So you can see really big improvements from a couple of sessions a week, and that's only like half an hour 2 or 3 times a week, which isn't too much to find. Like, you don't have to add it into your training program. You don't have to change what you're doing. Just do the sessions at altitude and get that bit more improvement, really. It's just the key.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you heard it here first, guys. First. And yeah, like you said, let's pull 6 and 7 into one question. But how often should you train in the altitude center? And I know this will differ depending on goals. So perhaps let's have a look at sort of maybe 3 varieties. Let's look at like the everyday athlete. So someone who's perhaps training for a 5 or 10K, someone training for a marathon, and then perhaps someone training for something slightly more extreme, like a 125 or a 250 event.
Sure. I guess to start like quite broad, we generally, brand new to it, if you allow 2 or 3 sessions a week for kind of 4 or 5 weeks, then that's when you'll start to see the improvements over and above. If you were doing exactly the same thing at sea level, generally allow that amount of time. But then really it's not necessarily about how many sessions at altitude you need to do, but it's about fitting it into your overall program. So if you're training for a 250 or a 125, then your mileage is going to be really big, or it's likely to be quite big anyway. So if you can come in, hit your hard sessions and hit your recovery sessions in here, that's great if you've got the time for it. Yeah. So it's more kind of about the training that you're doing anyway. If you can come in and do as much of that at altitude as possible, then that's only going to be a beneficial thing. But yeah, as a general rule, 2 or 3 sessions a week for kind of 4 or 5 weeks, and you'll start to see the improvements, as I say, over and above if you did the same thing at sea level, really.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So actually quite manageable. And obviously, talking, there is still going to be benefits if you're only able to make it once or twice. So you're just not going to perhaps ramp up as quickly. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's about it's about what you do in those sessions as much as how often you come. So if you can only do 2 sessions a week, then for sure you're still going to see the benefits of that in that same period of time. So it's about what you do in the session, perhaps more than how frequently you can come.
Absolutely. And just to go a little bit off piece, but I think it's worth mentioning, when people book into sessions, are they all guided by you guys, or are people able to kind of book out the chamber to do their own sessions?
Yeah, you can do it either way. So obviously when we're open, in normal times, we do have, as I say, like HIIT classes on. So you can book in on a bike, on a treadmill, whatever it is, for like a half hour or 45-minute HIIT class. So short, sharp effort, short recoveries, that kind of thing. Or circuit classes, kettlebells, bodyweight exercises, that kind of thing as well, like a studio. or yeah, if you've got your own program that you want to follow and you want to come in and do your tempo run on a treadmill, do your recovery run, do some cross training on your bike, then you can do your own training as well. So the choice is there really. Or we can take care of it for you and do like personal training and programs and that kind of thing as well. So the choice is yours, basically.
Yeah. Amazing. Because I imagine some people might come and actually not really know what's the best way to get the most out of their session in the chamber. Okay, well, we kind of looked at this, but if, let's say someone was coming in to training for a 250 event, let's say Mexico, for example, and they wanted to come in and have a session with you guys in the chamber, a personal training session, what would that look like?
I think for someone who's going to Mexico, the first thing to do is to understand if they were to go tomorrow, how would the altitude affect their performance? So if we compare what their performance is at sea level and what their performance is at altitude and like at the very start, and then it would probably, a personal training session, a one-to-one session on that would be along the lines of running or strength training, whatever's appropriate for them, or a combination of the two, but then at altitude. So the whole room, well, the room that I'm sitting in at the moment is at altitude. So the whole chamber is at 2,700 meters. But we can then take that up again through like a mask-based system to even higher altitudes if that's appropriate. So it'd be a guided session, some running, a little bit of strength work as well, because when you're doing so much downhill really for Mexico, as you know, is one of the killers. So a lot of kind of eccentric strength work, all at altitude, but kind of as is appropriate to the person. So it'd be understanding what the effect is on their body and then starting to counteract that through the training.
Amazing. And there's obviously a lot of guidance that comes from you guys as well, and that will all be explained throughout the session as well. Okay, and again, we've sort of touched on this, mentioned Mexico, but which of our races, you kind of know the full calendar, do you think training at altitude would be beneficial for? Obviously, all of them, but...
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one that we keep coming back to and the reason that we sort of came across each other in the first place is Mexico. Like Mexico is just the obvious one. You're spending pretty much the whole race is like around about that 2,000 meter mark. So particularly for quite well-trained athletes, that tends to have quite an impact on their performance. You know, that could be 5-10% impact on performance. So if you can reduce the impact of the low oxygen environment on your physiology, then your performance is going to be better. It's going to have less of an impact on your performance when you're actually racing, which is great. That's what we want.
Yeah.
As I said, I guess because the nature of the event, of all of the events, whether it's 125, whether it's 250, you're looking for really good endurance, which altitude training is perfect for, and you're looking for the ability to recover and do it all over again, which altitude training is really good for. So pretty much it's for any of the events, and then it's applicable for anyone looking to get the most out of themselves. So if they're going to the World Championships, I mean, the World Champs, having a quick look at that, like 10,000 meters elevation over 5 days, mad.
Yeah.
So anyone going there needs to be in peak performance. So if they can do their altitude training before that, they're going to be in better shape than if they've not been able to. Or if you're just looking to complete, then you're going to have a better time of it if you prepare properly, basically. So so any race, any person, get on it.
Amazing. And is there anyone it's not safe for? Just, I know that there's obviously, I guess there'll be kind of rules and regulations around pregnancy and people suffering with certain illnesses. Is there anyone that you would absolutely say, unfortunately, altitude training is not suitable for?
Yeah, I mean, you generally kind of take that on a case-by-case basis. There wouldn't be like a blanket recommendation for a particular group of people not to do it. I mean, if you're fit to train, then you're probably fit to do altitude training.
Okay.
And when it comes to our chamber here, like the biggest thing on our risk assessment is a treadmill, not the altitude. Just to put it into context. So, like, if you're happy using a treadmill, then you're probably good to train. But then obviously there'll be personal preferences within that. And you know, for people who don't want to exercise at altitude, then or you know they're averse to exercise, whether that's because of injury or they're new to exercise, whatever it is, then even just like passive exposures could be a safe way of introducing healthy behaviors and that sort of thing. So like we could actually remove the exercise altogether and just have exposures to altitude for people who aren't too, or who are a bit concerned about getting into it straight away. See what I mean? So we can ease someone into it.
Amazing. Yeah. I remember a friend of mine, Jordan, did some training with you guys, and she would sometimes be actually training and other times she'd just be like sitting in the chamber with the mask on. But she did win Jordan. So
Yeah, it worked. It worked quite well, I think. So
it worked quite well.
Yeah.
Someone's asked if there's any altitude chambers in Bristol that you know of.
We don't have anything in Bristol, but it is possible to use the generators at home if you've got kind of home gym setups, that sort of thing. So basically, it's kind of small machines, about the size of like a bedside table, that take air from the room that you're in, suck some of the oxygen out of it, feed it through a tube, and then you breathe that through a mask. And if you've got a bike set up with like Zwift, obviously has become huge during lockdown, so we had loads of people doing that, or if you're on a treadmill, that sort of thing. So there's no kind of center that we have down there, but being able to do it at home has been a bit of a game changer for a lot of people for the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we said, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're very positive about this year, and we're hoping that you guys get to open up very, very soon. So when we are open and when the world comes back to a little bit more, where can we find you guys?
Well, you can find us anywhere. As I say, we can provide equipment for anyone training at home and doing all that sort of thing. We have our site right in the city, so we're between Bank and St Paul's for those that know London. But you can find, we can provide stuff for anyone anywhere.
Amazing. Well, thank you, James, so much. It's been so nice to get a little bit of a greater insight into altitude training and who it's beneficial for. I'm definitely excited to get stuck into it once things open up and I can get into the sure. Guys, if you have any more questions about altitude training or want to know a bit more about booking a session, obviously just drop the guys a DM and they'll be tagged in this video. But thank you so much, and hopefully see you very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having us. Yeah, looking forward to having you guys in for a session when it's possible.
Yeah, me too. See you
Cheers, Anna. Bye.